Okay, so the session will be recorded for those students who can't make it later. All right, so my name is Tasha Kitano. I'm one of the language and learning educators with the grad team. My colleague, Dr. Kerry Freeman, is here as well, and Kerry will be moderating for me in the background. So thanks in advance to Kerry. She'll be helping put in all those useful links for you guys. Okay, so just a little bit of housekeeping as usual. I've muted all of you, but later on you're able to unmute yourselves and chat. We are going to go into a breakout room shortly, so please do that, turn your videos on and get to know your HDR cohort. So obviously there's the chat function. Kerry's thanking you for your student IDs. So we will be using the chat function as well to chat to each other, and also if you have any questions that you'd like answered. All right, so let's begin with the acknowledgement. QUT acknowledges the Turrbal and Yagara as the First Nations owners of the lands where QUT now stands. We pay respect to their elders, laws, customs, and creation spirits. And we recognise that these lands have always been places of teaching, research, and learning. QUT acknowledges the important role Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people play within the QUT community. I had a beautiful video for you to watch, but we have such a long session. I'm going to play that for you another time. For those of you who are familiar with HDR writing support, Kerry and I have tried to define workshops and writing circles. So this is a workshop, and in today's workshop, I'll be giving you lots of information. Today's topic is academic vocabulary. And in the workshop, we want to always include a breakout room for you to meet your peers and normalise the journey and have an opportunity to discuss with each other the topic at hand. So we'll be doing that today, and we'll be doing that straight up. Lots of people write to me thanking me for these opportunities to meet each other. Other people are a little bit shyer, not so keen. We encourage you to go into the breakout rooms. We're trying to put about 3 or 4 people in them. If you really are not comfortable, that's fine. You can stay in the lobby with me, but you'll get a little pop-up button to accept, and it really is a great way to connect with your cohort. As I said, this is being recorded, and all of our workshops and writing circles will be placed, the recording will be placed on the HDR student Blackboard after the event. The writing circles, our differentiation is that they are more interactive sessions, and Kerry and I usually use exemplars and practical activities in those as well. Sometimes we ask you to prepare by reading something specific, but we'll send you that information in your UniHub event reminder, which you should receive the morning before the day of the event. All right, so that's the difference between the two. All right, so this is a big topic. I'm going to be talking a lot today, but we'll be discussing a range of information which relates to academic vocabulary. Some of you may find some of the information quite basic. I've really made an attempt to add more advanced information as well, and I'm really trying to highlight how this is valuable for the HDR student. If you do find the information basic, I think it's always good to be reminded of things, and I really do hope that you're able to get something out of today's session. So rather than have a massive list of everything we'll be covering, it will just be revealed to you and surprise you with everything that we have to talk about. All right, so I thought we'd go straight up with our peer breakouts. So as I said, there'll be 3 or 4 students per room. You will receive a little notice to join, similar to the picture on your screen there. I may have to shuffle the rooms around. So if you find yourself suddenly moved, that's because I'm trying to even the numbers out. But what I'd like you to do today in the room is introduce yourself, you know, obviously your name, your faculty, and your research topic. Hello to Megan, welcome back. You can explain to the fellow participants what your research topic is. And today, because our topic is on academic vocabulary, I'd like you to just have a chat to the people in your breakout room, what problems you're having, and why are you here today? What is it that you want to learn today? So I have here, it'll be 10 minutes. It may be a little bit less than 10 minutes, depending on how many students are in the room. But again, I really encourage you to take the opportunity to meet each other. I know we're not doing anything face-to-face at the moment, and this is the best we can do. And it really is a great way to meet everyone who is in a similar position to you. So without further ado, I will put you into breakout rooms. Okay. All right, so as I said again, introduce yourselves. What's your research topic? What problems do you have with academic vocabulary, and why are you here? What do you want to learn from this workshop today? So I'll see you guys in about 10 minutes. Okay, bye. Okay, the rooms are going to close in 5 seconds. Great. So welcome back. Welcome back to all of you. It's always a struggle as the facilitator of these events to know how long to keep the breakout rooms open for, because we just don't know how well the conversations are going. But what I'd like to ask you, if anyone is brave enough to put on their mic or put into the chat, is there anything that you're having problems with in academic vocabulary, or anything that you'd like to learn today?
Tash, I like to say that it's too short, as always.
Okay.
But you know, I was paired with two other lovely individuals, and whose first languages are not English, and I think there's always that. I think it's important that the people understand that that academic genre is not easy for English speakers either, and that we can always learn something wherever we are. And so yes, just giving a lot of encouragement and admiration to those people.
Well, thank you so much, Megan.
Other than their L1.
Yeah, that is. Oh, is this Megan speaking? No, who's speaking?
Yeah, no, it absolutely was. It was.
Yes,
Tash.
yeah, it's Megan. Hello, thank you so much for that. And Sonia is saying as well, I'm learning so much from these sessions, and I'm English first language, and that's so true. And you know, it's funny, I've been an English teacher in ESL as well for more time than I'd like to share with you. And you know, prepositions, for example, they're so hard, and native speakers, domestic students, we struggle with knowing, is it in, is it of, is it to? And so we always have to be reminded. And these sessions, as I said to you earlier, there is some basic information today, but I am trying to plan it around the HDR student. And but that's very encouraging for all the second language speakers here. Megan, so thank you for that. If anybody else would like to make a comment, now's your time. So I'll give the floor to
Lisa here.
Hi Lisa, nice to see you again.
Thank you. What came up in our conversations was the time it takes to write. Basically things taking longer, much longer than you think. And if there's any tips today on speeding that process up, I'd be very grateful.
Yes, well, I think the biggest tip is to write regularly. And, you know, something that we're offering here at GRED is the Writers Lounge, and that happens weekly. So there's a guaranteed 2 hours of focused writing if you come to those sessions. But I think writing regularly, sending your documents to your supervisors regularly without the fear of, you know, bad feedback. But yes, try not to do that binge writing. I'll do everything on Sunday. we call it more snack writing, and do it as regularly as you can. Have you heard of the Pomodoro? Lisa, you've been to my lounges, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, so use the Pomodoro technique, put on the timer, just get some regular writing.
I think for me, I'm probably a binge and a snack.
Yeah, and I think that's okay to be a bit of both, but definitely try to get into the habit of writing, 25, the Pomodoro is 25 minutes, but just try to do a little bit every day. It will help. Carrie's just added in, if you wait for a whole day off to write, it won't happen. When do we ever have that whole day off? Okay, well, Lisa, I'll do my best, but if anybody else would like to make a comment, please do. All right, well, let's get to it. You are welcome to chat at any time. Kerry's available as well. All of you know Kerry. She's the other language learning educator with the GRED team. So we're both here to support you. All right, so let's begin. And I probably talked to you about this before. As an HDR student, I think it's really important for you to know who your audience is and who you are writing for. So I've got a great quote from the book, How to Write a Better Thesis. And it says, HDR students' audience, the only people who carefully read a given thesis are the project supervisors, the examiners, and an otherwise rather select audience of specialized academics. And in brackets, maybe we can say your mum and your partner and your children. So that's good news. These people are the people who will be reading your writing. So what I thought and I give this out in several of my workshops. Kerry's going to put in a link for the guidelines. These are guidelines for PhD, Doctor of Philosophy, but there are also guidelines for examiners for the MPhil. I really think it's important for you to know what the examiners have to do when they're looking at your writing, which is why I want to make this document known to you. This document will help you to understand how they evaluate your thesis. And I've got the next slide, actually, point number 5 is showing that the thesis should exhibit the same form of disciplined writing as would be accepted for publication in a journal of international standing. So this is the guidelines that your examiners are seeing. Go ahead and have a look at that. And Kerry will put in the link for where you can access that. The document, this document needs to be convinced that HDR students understand the topics in the way you write and the words that you choose, specifically the words that you choose. All right, so I thought we'd start with something just sort of fun. And I want to explain to you, so we have vocabulary and then we have academic vocabulary. So there is a difference. But before we get into those differences, I just want to throw it out there. I did a quick Google check before I came on today. Do you want to guess at how many words there are in the English language? Who would like to hazard a guess? Put it into the chat. Or are you all quickly Googling it? Okay. Oh, not that many, Sonia. Yusuf is closer than Cesar. Okay, let's take Anne. You're closer. Stephanie saying 470,000. Well, okay, great. I got 172,000. So I guess we're getting lots of different answers. But the fact is, there are a lot of words, and we, in your field, as an HDR student, you don't need to know all of the words. You need to know the academic words. Something I thought that would also be fun is the fact that words are being created more and more every day. And Sonia's saying slang and technical terms change. They do. Languages are living and they change. The words that I used as a teenager, my teenage children don't use them. I thought it would be fun just if you guys wanted to pop in. Are there any new words that you're familiar with that are being created? pop it into the chat so we can have a laugh or see if we agree with you. Ooh, COVID fatigue. POG. What's a POG, Leah? Yes, Google is now a verb. COVIDiots. Oh, right. My children say goat, the greatest of all time. Okay. If someone is a goat, they're the greatest of all time. Okay. Great. So, anybody else got anything? Yeet. Okay, I've not heard that one. What's yeet? Right, Emily's going to let us know what yeet is. Okay, so let's have a look at what just vocabulary is. Vocabulary is the building blocks of a language. So as we've established, you'll have to find out, Emily, what it is. There are hundreds of thousands of words in English. So when you're unsure of the word, what you need to do is check the meaning, the part of the speech or the word class. Is it a noun, a verb, an adjective? Does it have prefixes and suffixes, grammar and prepositions? Is it countable as a noun? If it's a noun, is it a countable noun or an uncountable noun? Does it have any collocations? Like, for example, the word Christmas. The collocation is Merry Christmas or Christmas present. They're words that go together with it. What's the level of register? Is it formal or informal? Obviously, the spelling and pronunciation. We'll be going through that again soon. Academic vocabulary, however, is formal, precise, concise, objective, and impersonal. And I think these are the words you need to play over and over in your mind when you're considering the words you choose in your writing. Please remember these 5 points. They're formal, precise, concise, objective, and impersonal. So that means they're not informal, they're not vague, and they're not subjective. So the tone you use has to be formal. So it shouldn't sound conversational or casual. It has to be objective and impersonal by avoiding direct reference to people or feelings, and instead it should emphasize objects, facts, and ideas. So you need to convince your readers, those examiners, that you're using the precise language, okay? All right. So we're going to have a quick section on everyday spoken English, general academic words, discipline-specific words, and then we'll also have a look at gendered language. So in everyday conversations, I think I won't get you to guess, I'll just show you. In everyday conversations, there are about 2,800 words that we use every day when we go out and meet people or we go into breakout rooms. However, academic words, there are 570 that are frequently used in academic contexts. So I guess that's good news. It's good news for you. And what we have found for you, and Kerry's going to put in a link for you, is the academic word list. Some lovely person has created this list. It has 10 sub-lists and they outline academic words and their word families. So if you've been to my writing circle on cohesion, knowing the word family of a particular word can really help you when you're creating cohesion in your writing. I'm going to give you an example in a moment, but in each list, there's about 60 words. And for those people who aren't native English speakers, what I suggest to you is that for you to truly know the word, you need to read it, you need to hear it, you need to speak it, and you need to write the word. And so I encourage you to go and have a look at these lists. Everybody should go and have a look at the lists. And obviously, you may or may not be using them in your writing. All right, so let's look at word families. This is also from the sub list. If you look at the main verb here is analyze, all of those words there in the list are considered the word family of the word analyze. And if you see in the middle, analysis is in bold and italicized. That word is the most frequently used word of this word family. So again, someone has created this list and has decided that that word is the most frequently used word. So the way that you can use a word family in your writing to create cohesion is by, rather than repeating the same word, what we do is we find a variation of that word using the word family, and we can connect two sentences side by side by using the word family. So I'll give you the example here. Supervisors need to communicate regularly with their students. So in that first sentence, the verb is communicate. And then we have regularly, which is actually an adverb. And so sometimes when you're sitting, writing, you get stuck on how you can connect the next sentence. What can you say next? So what my suggestion is to go back to one of the words in that sentence, and in this case, I've got communicate, and you find the word family of it, and you can connect the next sentence, which is, in fact, regular communication is one of the keys to a successful HDR journey. So I found this word family, and I've connected the two sentences. So that's one way of getting that academic vocabulary and connecting and creating cohesion. Okay, then we have discipline-specific vocabulary. So all of you are in your own faculties, and obviously you have discipline-specific words that you use in your field of study. Sometimes these words are not used very much outside of your discipline. So what you need to do is build your knowledge of discipline-specific vocabulary by reading, and reading some more. Sonia's asking, I would say we use Australian spelling, but you are right, depending on the journal that you're writing for. But if it's your thesis, I would use the Australian spelling. Okay, so I have some examples here, 1, 2, and 3. So let's look at number 1. So if I say these discipline-specific words, so we have cardiovascular system, prosthesis, and psoriasis. What faculty or what area do you think this belongs to? Okay, great. Thanks, Lisa. The answer is health. Let's try number 2. Return on investment, venture capital, depreciation. Good. Business or finance. Okay, great. How about number 3? Legislation, act, statute, or enactment. Okay, well done, guys. So again, you can see not all of you will need to know list number 1 because that's not your field, and it's a discipline-specific vocabulary. So we're going to have a quick look at this word, psoriasis. When you're looking at new words or words in your discipline that may be familiar or even unfamiliar, what you need to do is know all about the word. So for example, you need to know the meaning of the word. You need to know what part of speech is it? Is it a noun? Is it a verb? Is there a word family similar to what I showed you before? Is there an adjective? What are all the words that are connected to psoriasis? Does it have prefixes or suffixes? Prefixes are those small words before the main word, and suffixes are the word endings. For example, meant or ness. What is the grammar and the prepositions? Does it involve prepositions? If it's a noun, is it countable? What are the collocations? Remember I said those words that connect, like Christmas tree or Christmas present. The register, is it formal? Is it informal? How do you pronounce it? Of course, you need to know how to pronounce it if you're doing your confirmation or your seminar. And the spelling is really important as well. So I've created a little example for you here. Psoriasis, I've checked it out. I know the meaning is it's a common chronic inflammatory skin disease characterized by scaly patches. Okay, so I now know that. I know it's a noun. I've checked out the word family and I found there's an adjective. There's no prefixes or suffixes here. There's no prepositions because it's an uncountable noun. The plural form is psoriases. the collocation, the psoriasis treatment. Look how much I'm learning it from my discipline-specific word. Do I know how to pronounce it? And obviously we need to know how to spell it. Supervisors will not be impressed if you misspell a word. Okay, so these are all the things that you need to do with your discipline-specific word. Something else that I'd really like to stress is the writing process must involve reading. So you must do reading and writing, not reading or writing, okay? Please do both together. And something I really want to stress to you as well is that what you need to do is read as a writer. So when you're looking at all of those wonderful journal articles you have that are in your field, you need to not only study their style and their structure, their words as well, find the vocabulary, and then what you have to do is emulate the way they write. Okay, so this is really gold advice for the HDR students. Okay, so other advice I have for you is to use exemplars. So Kerry and I are bringing exemplars into all of our writing circles. And the reason we do that is it can help you with your word choice. They can result in improvement in your performance, in your writing. And it can also help you to distinguish between varying levels of work and helps you to harness your capability to make academic judgments. So analysing exemplars enables students to recognise the characteristics of quality work and acquire some of the tacit knowledge of the connoisseur, okay? They can help you with your word choices for your discipline-specific vocab. And as I said, you know, they highlight that quality work, but they can also highlight poor style. I think the great thing about exemplars is they can help to reduce your anxiety so that you can figure out what is the expected outcome of your writing, okay? So please look at examples, and one way you can do that is by using QUT's thesis repository, which is QUT ePrints. Kerry will put in a link for that. I know I always have this slide in my workshops, but it's really important for you to seek out other theses in your field and not only see their the style, the way they've organised their chapters, but the vocab as well and paragraphs. Thanks, Kerry. Please look at the other theses. Even if you don't follow the same structure, it can still help you to consolidate your thinking and planning. And so Kerry's just put in the other direct link, which is this one, and you can go and search within QUT ePrints. I would really advise you to ask your supervisors to recommend 1 or 2 or 3, but don't just stop there. You need to ask them why and which section and what's the reason. Ask for specific reasons why your supervisor wants you to look at a certain thesis, okay? So that you don't just sit there reading it from start to finish. All right. The next area I'd like to talk about is gendered language. So you can see this Declaration of Independence, all men are created equal. English has changed since the Declaration of Independence was written. So most readers no longer understand the word man to be synonymous with person. So clear communication requires writers to be more precise. And so please avoid using gender neutral, please use gender neutral language because that's become more standard practice in academic writing. Okay, Kerry's also put in a link for more information about that. I wasn't sure how detailed I should go with this. There's lots of information you can find about that, and there's some good information that United Nations has put out. I think that sometimes gendered language is unavoidable. For example, when you're quoting, or if your research is focusing on men or women or compares the two groups. But in general, this is something I found on the United Nations website. Try to use the gender neutral noun, and just be aware that English is living, it's changing, just like everybody out there. All of your languages are living and they're changing, and you don't use the same words that your grandparents did or your children do. So we need to be aware about that, and especially in our academic writing, please try to avoid that gendered language. Okay, so we'll move along to the next section, which is about slang, colloquial language and jargon. Okay, so the lines that separate these is thin. Sometimes they're even unclear. Each type of language is considered informal and typically is specific to a certain area or a group. So as you see here, slang is language of an informal register, and members of particular in-groups favour slang. And the reason they do that is to establish group identity, sometimes to exclude outsiders, or even both. Colloquialisms, these are informal words, phrases, or sayings that are often specific to one geographical area, and they are typically used in informal settings. Jargon, or sometimes we call it lingo, is defined as language used by a specific professional or perhaps an interest group. It shouldn't be confused with your discipline-specific vocabulary. So academic vocabulary does not include these words. So just have a quick practice. If we have a look at these sentences, the first one, the supervisor reckons the student is well informed. How can we change that? What word do you think we can alter here? Just put it into the chat for me if you like. Let's take away reckons. Okay, good. Okay, next one. The method was a little bit tricky to accomplish. Great, thank you. Complicated, somewhat challenging. Well done. The experiment was conducted 24/7. Okay. Okay. Around the clock may be a little bit colloquial as well. I think it's always good to get the approval of your supervisor. Okay, good. How about a number of financial heavyweights concur? Great, stakeholders, experts, good. Heavyweights is used in business world. It's not really an academic term. Okay, well done, guys. So always just consider the words that you're choosing, and just remember that we really do try to avoid any slang, colloquial language, or jargon. All right, let's move along to capitalizing, punctuation, and spelling. All right, you must do these correctly, and I've put in a little 10-point advice that I got from Clinton Golding's book, Advice for Writing a Thesis. Yes, Sonia, you're not alone. A lot of students over-capitalize, and we are going to talk about that in a moment. This whole list is really interesting, and later on I will be sending you a copy of this PowerPoint for you to look at it very slowly. But I just wanted to draw attention to number 5. Examiners are irritated and distracted by presentation errors. And when I say presentation errors, it means those bad capitalization, punctuation, and spelling. So it really is your job to not make these errors, and make sure you're not going to irritate or annoy your examiners. So I have some brief information about capitals. we use capitals obviously at the beginnings of things. So at the start of a sentence or a heading, for example, we use them for proper nouns, including nouns that describe groups. So have a look at the bracket here. So physics and the physics department. So physics department is obviously a group, and it's fine to put capitals there. We also can use capitals for items defined by their number. So if you look in the brackets, we have compare in the next figure, which is your language, or we're showing figure number 2. We would have a capital F for figure number 2. Some people even forget generally that, you know, names of days and months, please capitalize them. They must be capitalized, and nationalities as well. They for some reason, people forget that. However, this is the part that affects you guys. We don't use initial capitals for common nouns. So if we have, for example, finite element method, you don't need to put a capital F, a capital E, and a capital M. It's not necessary, and it's certainly not academic writing. Same with mass spectrometry. Again, we don't need to capitalize the M and the S. Okay, carbon dioxide as well, there's no capitals. If you're going to introduce an acronym, that may be different as well. So please take care when you're considering capitalizing, because you may be similar to Sonia or Sonia's supervisor. You know, you may be using too many capitals in your writing. Okay, so in general, we're going to now just talk about punctuation. So in general, don't use a prefix, excuse me, a hyphen with a prefix. So if you have multi-channel, non-linear, pre-amplifier, postdoctoral, realign, so those prefixes are multi, non, pre, post, and re. Can you see that? So those words are called prefixes, and they don't need a hyphen. So hyphens are problematic sometimes for students, but we can use a hyphen to separate vowels that would otherwise be read together. So if you look at the example pre-embryo, we have 2 E's here. So it is fine in this situation to put a hyphen between them, or if the original word is written with a capital. When we're talking about commas, commas are annoying, and a lot of people are confused and scared by them. Don't be. Usually we insert a comma between the subject of the main clause and whatever comes in front of it. So there's a good example here. Surprisingly, although the word surprisingly is not academic, and I'll talk to you about that soon, you would put a comma after that first word, and then the clause that comes after it. The temperature did not increase. In a series of 3 or more items, so you can separate them with commas. So red, comma, white, comma, and blue. So putting the comma after white is a personal choice. I personally don't like that, but I don't think there's hard and fast rule. Yes, Kerry's saying choose one way and be consistent. If you're using just 2 items in a list, there would be no comma as in black and white. If you are wanting to display the list down, what you should do is use the same punctuation that you would in a normal text, but just drop the word and. So if you look at the first sentence, the system is fast, comma, flexible, comma, and reliable. So that's in sentence form. But if you want to make it into a list form, the system is fast, comma, flexible, comma, reliable, full stop. Again, we debate this, but again, I would always talk to your supervisors about that, but what you can do, what's Kerry writing here? Okay, thanks, Kerry. I think Kerry's answering some questions there. So if we talk about spelling, there is absolutely no reason that you should be making spelling mistakes, and really supervisors will get a headache and annoyed, and examiners especially, if it gets to the point where it's right at the end, they will be very much irritated. So please check your spelling. Okay, so if in doubt, you can use APA referencing resources. So Kerry will put this link into the chat for you. Also, QUT has Site Write is available on the QUT Library webpage here. Kerry will put that link in. Thanks, Kerry. And you can, they address any questions that you may have surrounding punctuation, spell, and capitalization. All right, so we'll just move along. As I said, there is a lot to get through today. This section is on phrasal verbs. So when we speak a language, maybe the native speakers out there, you maybe you don't even realize that we use a lot of phrasal verbs, or they're idiomatic phrases that consist of a verb and another element, which is typically an adverb and or a preposition. And we use them so much in our everyday speech. For example, look up, turn around, take care of, you know, so there's lots of phrasal verbs that we use. Thomas Jefferson, I quite like this quote. He's saying the most valuable of all talents is that of never using two words when one will do. Take Thomas Jefferson's words with you. What we need to do in academic writing is try to always find that academic one-word alternative. Okay, so I'll give you some examples so you understand me. On the left, we have these common phrasal verbs. So we have go up, put into, find out, looked at, look for, look up. And it's really natural for us. And I think if you are an international student living and surviving in Australia, you need to have knowledge of phrasal verbs because we all use them. However, in academic writing, we don't want you to use them. We want you to find that one word academic alternative and use that instead. So I encourage you all to have a look, go back and look at your writing and see, are you using these phrasal verbs, these verbs plus an adverb or a preposition, and try to find the formal one-word academic alternative. Remember what I said at the beginning, that academic writing, it's clear and it's precise, and it's really important to try to avoid phrasal verbs in your writing. I thought we would have a little practice here. So if you look at sentence number 1, researchers looked at the results. Would you like to attempt? Okay. Make sure your tense is correct as well, Ansley. So it's looked at, it's past. So make sure you keep it in the past tense as well. Good. How about number 2? The scientist carried out the experiment. Okay, well done. Conducted, performed. Okay, good job. And there was lots of evidence. Thanks, Youssef. Ample. Considerable. Shafina, if you choose plenty, plenty actually needs that preposition of as well. So it actually is a phrasal verb as well. So again, it isn't the best alternative. But John Paul, Justine, yeah, they're good ones. So think about that when you're writing. If you have that tendency, try to get into the habit of avoiding phrasal verbs. A common phrasal verb is cut or cut out, and it's used in lots of different situations. It's quite funny. I thought it would be interesting to show you. So in the first sentence, the relevant paragraph was cut out. This meaning means delete. The DNA model was cut out using scissors. So that cut out means by shaping with scissors. She was not cut out for the task. This cut out has a different meaning, and it means suitable or equipped. The engine cut out, which was actually ceased operating. Or the last sentence, group 2 had sugar cut out of their diet. So you can see this one phrasal verb has so many meanings. Yes, and we could add that one. Zoom never cuts out at HDR Writing Circles because we have wonderful moderators. Yeah, good. So you can see it's vague. You need to have that really precise word, academic alternative. All right, let's move on to contractions. So contractions are commonly used in our speaking, our speech, and also in informal forms of writing, but they absolutely have no place in your academic writing. So as I said, academic writing is formal. We don't say didn't, we have to say did not. In the second example, couldn't should be could not. So I know that that's obvious, but it's just always good to be reminded. Now we're moving on to abbreviations and acronyms. Please beware of overusing abbreviations, especially acronyms. So let's have a look at them. So the first sentence says the uni provides support to HDR students. Sure, we can say that, and absolutely that's, you know, everyone wants to say that to each other, but you have to use the full word when you're writing. None of this approx, full stop, nothing like that. Please keep everything really academic when you're writing. Acronyms are abbreviations that are actually formed from the initial letters of other words, and they're pronounced as an actual word. So we've got who, UN. Mohassan, actually, etc. is not okay in academic writing. And the reason for that is because in this document, when you're writing a thesis, your examiners, your supervisors expect you to be precise and clear. So if you say etc., it's not precise or clear, is it? You need to tell me everything or tell me exactly what you want me to know, but not adding etc. So I would absolutely avoid that. Anyway, coming back to the acronyms, my son's favorite is the FIFA one. So you can see we have acronyms. What's really important is you will have your own unique acronyms in your thesis. What you need to do as the writer is remember to remind your reader throughout your chapters what they are, okay? So please think of your reader throughout your chapters. So I thought we would have a look at this one. So firstly, GNP, what does that mean to you? Gross national product, great. That's what we would assume. However, in a particular thesis, one student is using it for gold nanoparticles and he's writing GNP. What you need to keep in mind is that acronyms can help keep a text concise, but they can also render it really cryptic. Many acronyms have several possible extensions, so just be aware of that. It doesn't mean that you can't use them, but it does mean that they do have other possibilities to them. Also, when you're writing your acronyms, make sure it's always in uppercase, not in lowercase, okay? And what I would suggest to you is introduce the acronyms systematically in the first time they're used in a document. So obviously, I hope you're all aware that you write the expression out in full, and then you put the acronym in brackets and parentheses after that. So that's really important to remember as well. And I have here, in a very rare case where an acronym is commonly known, you might not need to introduce it, for example, DNA in life sciences. But if you have doubt or unsure, it's best to talk to your supervisors, okay? So that everything stops with your supervisor. All right, we're going to go on now to numbers, writing numbers. And lots of students get these wrong as well. So yes, not when we're repeating the acronyms, no, we don't need to write them out in full, but I would suggest that if you're writing an acronym in your abstract, for example, I would suggest that you write it out again in full in your introduction and in consequent chapters. It's good practice for you to remind the reader of what it is throughout. Okay, hope that helps. Okay, so let's have a look. So Writing numbers. In general, we write single-digit numbers. That means 0 to 9 in words, in the actual words. So we would write 2 hours, TWO, because it's from 0 to 9. But multi-digit numbers, that means 10 and above, we use the numeral form. So we would write 24, 2, 4, like that, hours. We also use numerals when we use them with abbreviated units. For example, 3MV, please use the 3, the numeral. With dates and times, we can use numerals as well. Numerals identify figures and other items. Again, you can use the numeral. Use numerals for consistency when these numbers are mixed with larger numbers. So, for example, if you've got 3, 7, and 24, you can use numerals together. Use words for numbers above 10 if these numbers come at the beginning of a sentence or heading. So, for example, if you want to start your sentence with 2008, you would need to write it out 2008, like that. The other alternative you have is rephrase the sentence to avoid starting with a number. So you could say the year 2008 was challenging, blah, blah, blah. But yes, don't just start 2008. That's not how you should start your sentence. Okay. We're going to move along now to subjective and emotional language. So in academic writing, we really need you to avoid any emotive language because academic writing is formal and objective. This is something I see commonly in students writing. The student, is very involved in the research and the content, and they have, great feelings about their research. And they want to use these words like extremely, unfortunately, frustrating. Remember the example I gave you before with surprisingly. They're really not good words to use. They're not academic and they have too much emotion attached to them. So go back and have a look. Yes, Justine, you're not alone. Lots of people are guilty of using emotive language. Go back and have a look and see if you are, and try to avoid that. And again, if you're unsure, ask your supervisors what they think. So I've got a little bit of a recap about what we've talked about. So we can't say it was a little bit tricky because that's slang. There was lots of evidence. Again, this is not good because that's a phrasal verb. Cut out is another phrasal verb. The fourth sentence, unfortunately, the data cannot be used. Well, that's subjective and emotional, so we don't use that. The data was frustrating. Again, yes, you probably were very frustrated. However, you don't write that. It's not academic. It's subjective and emotional. And the last example, the research didn't yield any positive results. This is a contraction. And I know little things like this can really affect your writing and your examiners and supervisors' perception of it. All right, now we're going to move along to academic reporting verbs. So as a researcher, you are required to comment on someone's work, agree or disagree with someone else's study, and also evaluate someone's ideas. You look at the picture I've chosen. If you say, Smith says, over and over and over again, he's yawning because that's really boring and it's really repetitive. There are a wide choice of reporting verbs in English, and I want to encourage you to use them. Reporting verbs can indicate the author's personal viewpoint or your viewpoint regarding what the author says and the author's viewpoint regarding other literature. So I have a table here, and this table is showing you the position of the verb. Is it weaker, neutral, or stronger? So some verbs are weaker in their function while others are strong. Some verbs are followed by prepositions, for example, to, for, with, of, and others are followed by a noun or that. And actually some verbs can fit into more than one category. So it's important that you understand how to use the verb correctly before you place it in a sentence. And obviously, please remember your tense. Is it past or present? It's really important for you to remember your tense. Something else that's really important is I've been reading recently this book by Kamler and Thompson, and they talk about the invisible scholar for the HDR student. You know, you have to be careful to avoid he said, she said. So I've got an example here of a doctoral researcher who's writing about school effectiveness literature. And, you know, she has lots of literature here, and she seems to be looking at a lot of information, but her relationship to it remains hidden. Every sentence begins by naming the researcher, and it's followed by a fairly neutral verb. So you look here, Mortimer also contributes, Hopkins suggests, Reynolds and Cuttance also point out, Hargraves and Hopkins also endorse. And mind you, the referencing is not correct because you should have the year after the name. However, if we're just looking at the invisibility, you need to remember, well, in this example, there's a lack of connection between the sentences. It looks more like a list and a summary of ideas. So what you need to remember as an HDR student is you need to make an evaluative stance. Don't be that invisible scholar. What you need to do as a researcher, and when you're writing, you're becoming an expert in your field. Yes, you need that depth of knowledge, but you also need to have that critical voice. So what you need to do is you need to critically engage with the literature or the discourse community that you're becoming a part of. Don't simply express your own ideas, but do so as a response to what others have said. Show how you've contributed to literature by joining in the conversation, and you also show that you have advanced and contributed to new knowledge, which is the whole reason you're on this journey in the first place. Okay, so I think something else really important to think about. All right, we're now getting to prolixity or wordiness. So prolixity, blah, 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 is when speech or writing contains too many words and is tediously lengthy. Has anybody's supervisor said, oh, this is very wordy, or you're using lots of complex words or very, very long sentences? I think, yes, I think supervisors, it's a common complaint for them. It's a common problem. What you need to remember is concise writing is key to clear communication. If your writing is wordy, it's going to obscure your ideas and it's going to frustrate your readers. So these are some ways to avoid wordiness. Sometimes we can cut out some phrases that might be a bit wordy. So instead of for the purpose of, or in view of the fact that, basically, as a, you know, sometimes we can just cut these little phrases out, especially if you have a tendency to use them, and just use one word or no words. Sometimes we overuse relative pronouns, who, which, and that. In my example here, it was Confucius who said. We don't need that. You can just say Confucius said. It's very precise and clear. And I think I have some more. Yes, so sometimes we double up with our words. So you might be guilty of this as well. Mutual agreement, future prospects, reconsider again, whether or not. We don't need both of these words. Just choose one. Just choose one of them. Agreement is fine. Prospects is fine. So go and have a look at your writing and see if you can avoid this doubling up of words. Here's some more examples. Each and every, first and foremost, we don't need all of these. Just choose one. They're called redundant pairs, and you really don't need them in your writing. I think Kerry's looking at the chat for me. Okay, we'll just keep going then to long sentences. So I think the best thing that you can do with the long sentences is just really to cut them in half. When I'm sitting with a student and we're looking at their writing, so obviously it's not my field, I don't know the content, but I'm able to read it. If I find myself going, well, hang on, I need to go back and read that all again because it's got clause after clause and it's, you know, this really long sentence. It's not clear. What you need to do is read it aloud, find when you're wanting to pause in your breath, and maybe that's the point where you need, you know, you have to stop and start a new sentence. That's the point, yeah, where you need to make a new sentence. So I went to a workshop recently with Inga Newburn. She's the author of The Thesis Whisperer. And she suggests that a sentence shouldn't be longer than 50 words. I don't think there's any hard and fast rule about how many words, but I would suggest you you don't sit there and count every single one of your sentences, but do try that reading aloud and see if you can, where you want to pause, please just stop and try to get that connection between the two sentences so that your idea can continue. Here's an example, a bad example of sentence. This is 70 words and it just goes on and on. Whereas what you could do is have shorter sentence that have clear clauses. Kerry said before, avoid simple sentences. You know, in English, we have 4 sentence types. We have simple sentences, we have compound sentences, complex sentences, and compound complex sentences. I have a workshop on what they are. We have information actually on the Blackboard page about sentences. And you can see here, I've colored it so that you can see there's a new clause here and it's easier to read. It wasn't 15, it was 50. It was 50. No more than 50. So 50 is a very long sentence, but yeah, please don't go beyond 50 words. That's her advice. But again, my advice is read it aloud. Word has this function actually, as you can see here. Type your sentence, click on review, the review tab, and click on read aloud. It will read it for you. Listen to it and try to stand outside of your shoes. Think of how someone else is listening to it or reading it. How do they feel? Is it easy? Is it frustrating? You want to engage your reader, make it easy for them. So cut it in half. Okay. All right, we're getting to some information which I think you should know. In academic writing, we generally avoid personal pronouns. However, for those of you out there who are doing practice-led research, for example, or qualitative research, it is becoming more accepted for the first person to be used. So we have sometimes students will write, in my opinion, I think you can see these words really are not considered academic and they should not be in your writing, in your journal at all. If you are, as I said, using practice-led research, you are able to use personal pronouns. However, I would suggest that you limit them, don't overuse them. Personally, I can't write a personal pronoun in any academic writing that I do. I've been taught that they're not used. But recently, and I'd like to share this with you, a supervisor sent this article to me, and Kerry's going to put a link to it for you. This article stresses that the voice that we use now in research is changing. And there's some information here about qualitative researchers. And it's quite interesting, actually. She talks about people who are doing qualitative research, if they write in distanced third-person voices and give short shrift to the voices of informants, as if neither them nor their informants were part of the research, you know, which is not good. Unfortunately, such styles of writing not only silence their informants and themselves, but many times they also contradict the philosophies of science on which many forms of qualitative research are based. So this is, I thought, really quite interesting. You can have a look at that. So I'm aware, Kerry and I are both aware that languages are changing, these things are changing, and personal pronouns are able to be used. However, again, I stress, use them sparingly in your writing. Okay, I thought I would introduce some starter phrases to you. We have this wonderful resource available to us. It's called the Manchester Phrase Bank. And if you haven't used it before or haven't heard of it, it's a great place for you to go and find starter phrases. So I took a couple just because I thought it would be interesting to share them with you. This is an example of starter phrases when you're highlighting inadequacies of previous research. So this is not considered plagiarism. It's just a way for you to start your sentences off. And some of them are really great. She, actually, I'm not sure if it was a man or woman, but the person who wrote this, this is for introductions. We also have methods. I'm not going to read them all out. Have a quick look. Also the literature review. So have a look at that link that Kerry sent, and some really great ways for you to find those sentence starters. All right, so now we're going to move along to active voice versus passive voice. So I was deliberating about how detailed I go into this topic. When I was young, we didn't learn grammar at school, and I'm aware that the domestic students out there today may or may not know what a passive voice is. But in English, verbs can be expressed in one of two voices. They're either active or passive. Generally, I would suggest that in academic writing, we use the active voice wherever possible because, did I say active? I think I did. Please use the active voice when possible because passive voice sentences often use more words. They can sometimes be vague and confusing, and sometimes there's a tangle of prepositional phrases that you end up in a big tangle, and it's difficult to understand. However, we're going to look at it slowly and I'll explain to you. All right. I've written his name here, but I was going to ask you, who is this? So we all know this is William Shakespeare. Do you want to tell me what is his famous play? The Romantic, or is it a tragedy? Who'd like to tell me what is the famous? Okay, thank you. Good. Yes, Romeo and Juliet. So I think this was the best example for me to explain active and passive. So in an active sentence, Shakespeare wrote Romeo and Juliet. So in that sentence, Shakespeare is the subject and Romeo and Juliet is the object. If we look at the passive structure, the object, Romeo and Juliet, now becomes my subject in the sentence. And we change wrote to was written. So we use was, which is the be verb, and written is the past participle verb. It's all getting very confusing. And then by Shakespeare, so Shakespeare is now the agent of the sentence. So that's the difference. That's an active voice and a passive voice for those people who are unaware of the structures. Passive structure is used when you want the reader to focus on the result of an action rather than the person doing the action. So even you are able to use the passive voice in academic writing, but it shouldn't be overused. Have a look at the two sentences here. So in this active sentence, scientists classify glass as a solid, and the passive structure is glass is classified as a solid. So I've taken scientists away because as a writer, I'm focusing on how glass is classified rather than who classifies the glass. So that's the reason that I've decided to use the passive structure here. We use passive voice in academic writing when we're talking about procedures and processes, when we're focusing on the action and avoid talking about the doer. We sometimes use passive voice to avoid repetition. And sometimes we do it when the doer or the agent is either obvious, unknown, or not significant. So they're the reasons that we use passive voice. However, I've got an example here, sorry. So I've got two sentences. What you need to decide as the writer is what your focus is. So here we have an example of the preprocessor sorts the two arrays, or the two arrays are sorted by the preprocessor. So if you are discussing the preprocessor, the first sentence is the better option. But in contrast, good. If you're discussing the arrays, the second sentence is better. Okay, so if you're unsure what you're discussing, what you need to do is consider the surrounding sentences and decide, are they about the preprocessor or are they about the two arrays? I think what's happened especially in scientific writing, there's this desire to be objective, which is correct because that's academic, but it's led to an overuse of the passive voice, which is why you might have your supervisor say to you, please write in the active, don't use passive structure. Because, as I said earlier, the passive voice is sometimes less interesting. Sometimes it's more difficult to read than those sentences written in the active voice. So if you want more information about this, please do your own investigation about it. And again, I'll remind you, as I said at the start, in general, try to use the active voice when you can, because again, passive voice uses more words, it can be vague, and it can lead to that tangle of prepositional phrases. And if in doubt, ask your supervisors. All right, we're still going. See, there's so much. I told you there's so much. So now we're going to look at cliches and idioms. Cliche is a phrase or opinion that is overused and it indicates a lack of original thought, whereas an idiom, it's a fixed phrase or expression and it has a figurative meaning that is different to or different from its literal meaning. So in English, we avoid both of these in academic writing. I know that different cultures, the use of idioms in different cultures is actually a sign of cultivation and erudition. But in English, it's not. And I think it can seem folksy and really not academic. So please go back and look at your writing and make sure you're not using any cliches and idioms. All right. Something else I'd like to talk to you about is nominalization. So this is when you get a verb, adjective or an adverb and you actually turn it into a noun. So you have to actually change the word form and you change the position of the sentence, and you may need to change the other sentences too, but I'll show you so you can understand. Okay, so nominalization is the changing of verbs into nouns. So if you look at this example, sentence number 1 is 14 words in this sentence. Another positive factor is the fact that this can be used to reduce pollution. So if I want to make a shorter sentence, I find the verb reduce and I get it the noun form of that verb, which is reduction, and I change the sentence to the reduction in pollution is another positive factor. And so this way I have a shorter sentence. The reasons we use nominalization is we can make texts impersonal, which is what you need in academic writing, formal and academic. We use nominalization to focus on concepts, not actions, to avoid repetition and to concentrate all of that information into one sentence. And we can use complex noun phrases instead of simple subjects or objects. And again, to add that precision. However, if I am going quickly, don't worry, because you will be able to get these slides later and check it out again. When you are figuring out how to do this in your own writing, you need to know your word forms. So you need to practice changing the verbs into nouns. So we have allocate, the noun form is allocation, and so forth. You can see the other words there. So yes, really important that you know your word forms and your word families. All right, we're coming up to another really important academic writing tip, which is keeping your writing parallel or parallelism, which means that your writing is moving in the same direction. This is something else that I commonly see with students. They write this wonderful sentence, but they don't have a parallel structure. So parallelism ensures your grammar is correct and it makes your writing flow. A parallel structure is two or more words, phrases, or clauses. So it can be a word, it can be a phrase or a clause that have a similar length, but more importantly, they have a similar grammatical form. So I'm going to give you some examples. All right, so have a look at the first one. I'll read it for you. HDR students require resilience, to be patient, and professional. What's wrong with this sentence? Well, we're not all sitting in a room, so I can't get the answer from you, but it's not parallel. Resilience is a noun. To be patient is a prepositional phrase, and then we have professional as an adjective. So what you need to do is make them all nouns or make them all grammatically parallel. So an alternative is HDR students require resilience, patience, and professionalism. You will be surprised how many of you have this as a problem in your writing. Another example of correct parallel structure is, it is ideal to study in a room with good lighting, a spacious desk, and a comfortable chair. So they're using those noun phrases. Then we have, next slide. Other parallel structures are infinitive phrases, the ing form, using both and, neither nor. So I have all of these example sentences here. Please go back and look at your writing. Do you have this? To? Is it parallel? Is your whole sentence parallel with the ing? Is it parallel? Some students put to play and then they put watching, eating, and to play. You need to make sure they're all the ing form. Make sure everything is parallel in your writing. Again, it's a really common error that you can avoid. Here, not only, but also, it needs to be preceded by the comma here. You can also have clauses, main clauses and dependent clauses that are parallel. So I'll read out this essay will discuss the importance of homework. It enables the development of skills and it helps students review. So I've got those clauses, those main clauses. Or I've got the if clause in example B. If industrial nations continue to burn fossil fuels, and if developing nations continue to burn their rainforests, they're my dependent clauses, comma, the level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere will continue to increase. Okay, so please just be aware of parallel structures and make sure you're using them in your writing. Okay, I'll just keep going, if that's all right. Repetition. Okay, repetition of words, repeating the same words several times in writing can serve to emphasize the importance of the word or even the idea. So why do we use repetition? When is repetition okay? So repetition can help your readers follow. Repeating your research questions is really important at the start of your chapters, restating your research questions in the conclusion, or keep referring to your key variables or themes throughout and repeating the main points, obviously sparingly as well. We have the example, ask not what country. Oh, hello? Someone's just accidentally clicked on there. Okay, sorry, let's keep going. So yes, repetition is good. And so I've got an example here. HDR students strive to have a strong bond with their supervisory team. This strong bond can lead to positive outcomes. But again, I think it's really important for you as HDR students to remember repetition of your research questions and throughout your chapters is really important. This is a slide that I've repeated from earlier, just to remind you, you can use repetition with word families as well. As I showed you before, we changed communicate to communication. Don't forget, repetition with word families is really useful too. Okay, so then we're getting to synonyms. It's really important for you to use synonyms. And the reason that you do that is because you create cohesion in your writing. So using words that are synonymous is an alternative to direct repetition of the key subject words. It has the same result of increasing the ability of the reader to find the theme of the writing in the text. So here's a good example. The supervisor-student relationship is characteristically intense because of the length of time taken to complete a PhD. And then my synonym is duration. Duration commonly takes 3 years. Okay, I'll come back to you guys in a little bit. Let's just keep going. Here's another example. Myths narrate sacred histories and explain sacred origins. These traditional narratives. So that's a synonym of the word myths there. Don't forget your synonyms, guys. The way you can find synonyms is by using thesaurus.com. They've just changed their logo recently, so I've got the updated logo there. Or you can right-click on your document and it'll take you to a list of synonyms. Be careful that you're choosing the correct one. It needs to fit the context of your writing. Dictionary.com as well will help you understand the word clearly. And again, it has changed its logo as well. Okay. Kerry's sorting things out for me. Thanks, Kerry. All right, so something else that's important with this in this workshop and vocabulary is subheadings. So please use subheadings throughout your writing to help with connection. But what's really important, the reason that I've decided to bring it into this workshop is because of the words that you need to use. So here's an example. My subheading is Research Design Framework. Have a look at A and have a look at B and tell me which is the best choice for me to be the next sentence or the sentence under this subheading. Leah's saying B. You guys agree with Leah? Yeah, good. Why? Why is that? It's because the words, it clearly talks about the subject heading. It's amazing how many people will just start talking about something completely different, even though they've given the chapter this great subheading. So you have a subheading and you start talking about pasta or pizza, there's no relevance, there's no connection. Don't forget to find, it doesn't have to be a repetition, but it needs to be directly connected to the actual subheading that you're using. Okay, great. All right, so keep going. And we're now on to transition signals. So transition signals, they have lots of names. They're called signposts, they're called connectors, discourse markers, linking words and phrases. Basically, they have a function to create cohesiveness in writing. The reason I'm bringing them into today's workshop again is because these are words that are really important in your academic writing, and it surprises me again and again how many students forget to use them. We don't use them in speech very often. We don't say moreover or in contrast, but we do need to use them in your writing. It helps the logical construction of your sentences, and your paragraphs can become more connected. Okay, so please don't forget to use them. Remember though to use them judiciously. If you're saying firstly, secondly, thirdly, fourth, that becomes really boring. and it's not considered academic at all. All right, so as I said, there's lots of names for them. Their function is to establish cohesiveness to your writing. We have a resource on HDR Student Blackboard giving lots of examples of transition signals, but we use them for addition, for chronological order, for contrast, summary, reason, result, cause, effect, example, and for conditions. Please go back and check your writing. Are you using these transition signals? Because you should. And thank you to Sonia, who's saying she used it on the weekend. I'm really happy to hear that. And it really just will help your writing sound formal and academic. All right, so I thought I would, we're nearing the end now. I thought I would just outline a couple of no-no words. Kerry might want to contribute to this, or you guys could ask me, but there's some words in academic writing that we can just avoid. Good, good is fine, good is good, but it's not really academic. Bad, nice, big, small, like, oh my goodness, please don't use like in your writing. It's very natural in spoken English, but it certainly doesn't belong in your academic writing. Just as well, please don't use that. The word thing is one of my pet peeves. What is it? I think if you're inspired to write the word thing, you need to think exactly what is the thing? What is it? What kind of object is it? Or what kind of noun is it? And describe it. Do not write the word thing. It's absolutely not academic. Again, really and very, they're subjective. We don't need really and very in our writing at all. Again, with the word people, sometimes we want to just say people, but you're writing a precise academic document. Which people? Who are the stakeholders? Please describe them clearly, accurately, precisely. So don't write the word people. And also actually, yeah, that doesn't belong. Kerry, do you have any pet peeves out there? Any words that you would like to add to that list? Or does anybody want to add anything? Zoe's saying it. Okay, Jasmine says so. So I'd like to address Zoe's first. Zoe, it is a pronoun, and similar to Zoe, this is a demonstrative pronoun. These words are absolutely fine. However, they're easy to confuse. So if you have a sentence and then your second sentence says this, blah, blah, we don't know what this, from the previous sentence, what this refers to or what it refers to. So what you need to do is be really careful and go back and see if you can find a shell noun. So you can say this trend or this data or these laws, whatever it is. It's fine to have it, it's fine to have these, but you need to make sure that there's a real obvious connection between what you're referring to in the previous sentence. Who said so? Jasmine said so. So actually is fine as long as it's used in a compound sentence as that conjunction. So if you're giving a result, it is raining today, comma, so the picnic has been cancelled. That's fine to have that so. We would never start a sentence with so. We never start a sentence with and or but. They're conjunctions and they need to be in the middle of a sentence or between two clauses. So that's also really important. It is fine to use so, but know when to use it. So Melanie is saying they. I think what's really important, and if you have been to my writing circle and cohesion, we would never start they as the first sentence in a new paragraph, because it's a new paragraph, it's a new idea, and we don't know who they is. You need to make sure that your paragraph, it's very clear from the onset what the topic is at the start. If you want to have they in the second sentence or the third sentence, which refers back, that's completely fine. So Sarah saying said is fine, but as we talked about earlier in the workshop, please you know, choose your verbs well, and remember what I said, be that researcher, be involved. But yeah, don't, I think they called it the invisible scholar, don't just keep overusing the words. All right, can you hear my voice? I'm talking so much. So Anna's asking about there is or there are. That's a good point as well. It is okay to start a sentence with there is or there are, but however, if you can find the subject of the sentence and put it at the start, it does make it more precise. So you can avoid using there is and there are, but you don't have to always avoid it. All right, so we're going to finish by talking about academic vocabulary in presentations. So later on, I think next month, I'll be doing writing stuff on presentations. So if you are at the point where you are going to be doing your confirmation seminar or your final seminar, please come along because we've got some good tips. If you're going to be presenting at a conference, we have information about that as well. The rules are a little bit different in presentations. So we can use contractions, we can use phrasal verbs and personal pronouns. We could possibly use some idioms and cliches, and we can use those conjunctions and but also at the start of our sentence. So a little bit different when we're speaking. Academic writing is a lot stricter and has more rigid rules. However, when you are doing presentations, we still would encourage you, don't use slang, don't say like, don't say guys and one other. It should be very academic and professional words used as well. Okay, so that is the end of today's session. As you know, you do receive your e-updates every 2 weeks. We have lots of events coming up for you. Kerry and I were talking this morning, we have at least one thing every week. So we really are here for you. So check your e-update. There's registration links to all of our events. This is where Gred is. Come along to us. I do want to remind you again about the skills assessment tool. It's been created for you. And again, you can use it for your annual progress report, for your CV, update your skills. You can go today and say that you've learned lots of information on academic vocabulary, and you can use the STARS format, which is situation, task, action, results, and self-reflection. Go ahead, update your skills assessment tool. Do it right now before you leave, and it's a really good way to document what you have been doing along your journey and with the grad support. So as I said to you, these are our events coming up. So someone asked me at the beginning, how can I do writing? We have to do those regular writing. So we have this lounge. The next one is next Tuesday. It's also on the 21st and the 29th. I don't think they're Tuesdays actually. Sorry, I think that I made a mistake there. This is the lounge where you can do some focused writing. There is a milestone Q&A next week, really informative for you. If you're a newbie, you need lots of information about your milestones, come along, there's a panel, they'll answer any questions that you have. And Kerry will be doing a writing circle on the lit review on the Thursday. So look, we have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then the following Tuesday, I'll be conducting a workshop on how to manage and respond to feedback. And this is also a really great place for you to learn about, learn skills on getting the feedback that you need from your supervisors and responding to the feedback that you get from them. All right, so thank you so much for attending. Thanks to everyone for your kind words. And actually, Leah, there is a way that you have a record of which workshops you've attended, and I'm glad everyone's still here. You can, Kerry, help me remember how to do that. You can go to, thanks Yusuf, thank you everybody. I will put it in the follow-up email. How about that? I'll let you know it in the follow-up email, but there is a great way for you to find out all the all your attendances. Okay, thanks so much, guys. Have a great day. Thanks, Cesar. Thanks, Dominique, Ifra. Shafina, no, don't use etc, don't write it out, etc. Just avoid using it. Instead of putting etc, you would just write the actual examples. Thanks, Joseph. Thanks, Emily, Sophia, Zahira, Zahra. Yes, Shafina, write all of them, or as many as suits the context of what you're writing, okay? But the word etc. is too vague. And thanks, Christopher and John Paul. But I would, if you're unsure, Shafina, ask your supervisor, okay?